Hey everyone, this is Kelsey from the Arcane Library, and today I'm going to walk you through how I take notes for my campaigns. So this is a process that I feel like I'm still perfecting and that I've been working on for a long time, but I take handwritten notes for my campaigns, and I know there's a ton of technology options out there these days, but I find that when I'm sitting at the table and I'm with my players, I don't want to be having a computer open unless I have to, and I just really like handwriting notes, whether it's what's going on in the game or, monster hit points and all of that. And so I just have tried to figure out a way to put that all into one place. So I'm going to show you how I set my journal up and then some examples of what it should look like. Flipping open to the very first page, this is where we set up something called an index. This is going to be a way for you to see the sessions you've run and the page numbers for specific things that you might want to look up. So this kind of leads us into the big trick of all of this, which is that you want to write your notes when you're using this system in a format called spreads. So that's when you're looking actually at a page, and a spread is the 2 pages that exist when you have it open flat. You're not going to want to go over the spread, and you're going to just skip to a new spread whenever it's time to start making a new batch of notes per session. So, kicking off index. Now you'll notice that I have some titles of things listed here. I already made a mistake there. That's okay. You should make mistakes. This isn't supposed to be a work of art. It's supposed to be functional. So I just scribbled out and wrote. But I have some page numbers running down the side, and then I have the titles. So first things first, this book does not come with numbered pages, but it's really important to have that. So the very first thing I do is I go through and I write page numbers in the corners. So page 1, page 2, and I do that all for the entire notebook, so you never have to worry about it again. It takes 2 minutes, and then you'll be really happy you did. So you can use this as a really good reference after that point. When you're beginning a spread, it's important to write the title of it on the top left page, because when you're flipping through here, that's always going to be where the title of the spread is, so you'll very quickly know where to look just to orient yourself into where you are. So this is going to be the index, and this is where we're going to keep track of all the other pages. So you'll see some listed here, and I'm going to jump into the exact set of standard spreads that I've put in my book before my very first session. So turning the page, you'll notice the index page does not have numbers. No need for it. We know it's the first page. But I kick off with numbering on the next page. This spread is titled Campaign Overview. And this is actually where I write a running list of just a quick little snippet of information about the most important things that happen in each gaming session. So the format that I use for that is I'll say session number, notes, and I'll just write like a quick 1 or 2 sentence thing, like found the hideous halls of Muggle-Blob, went inside, talked to the halflings, found the key. So in my index, that's what I wrote here is page 1, campaign overview. So now we're going to go to the next spread, which starts on the following page. So jumping over to page 3, I have a spread set up for my players. So it's important to have a spread for your players and then for characters. You want to keep those 2 things separate, because sometimes you want to have a little bit of information about your players that's held apart from their characters. Like you want to write down the names of your players, especially if you run a lot of open games like I do, and you're getting to know regulars, or you have new people who show up and you want to remember their name. And then I always write a little bit of notes after that. So this is the setup I use. We've got the name of the person and maybe a line of notes. Usually I'll say something like, has never played D&D before, or, loved 3rd edition, or can only come every other week because he has a job on Saturdays or something. So I'll just put something in there that might be important to remember. And then I'll also make sure I list out who that person's characters were down below, just so that I can remember when I look at here, like, oh yeah, Jim was playing Bobbin the Thief. So that's a good way to kind of attach the character and the player together in your mind. But our next spread is going to be the all-important character spread right here. So this is really important because you're going to be referencing this a lot and kind of updating it on occasion. So the format that I use for this, all right, let's see if I can show you guys while reading it. We've got the name bolded, that's the first thing, the name of the character. And then I've got their alignment, race, class, and then the background of that character. In the games I run, characters have usually a one-word background, like soldier or sailor, and it's really good to have that at a glance so that when you're planning the next things you want to do, you can think, oh yeah, Bobbin the Thief, he was a sailor. I wonder if I could bring in some NPCs that he might know that were pirates. So it's great to have that. And then one thing I'll do is I'll write level at the end here with a colon, and I will fill in the level of the character here in pencil, because that's going to be changing all the time. So I will update it in pencil, and then when they gain a level, erase, and then just write in their current level in there. So that's how I do it, and then I'll always note down the player of that character here. Same reason we did, on the prior spread when we were talking about the players, we listed their characters there. This is just another way for me to be like, Bobbin the Thief, oh yeah, that's Jim's character. And then I'll always have a couple of notes here, like Bobbin lost his leg in a fight against the Tarrasque last week, or something like that. Things that are important to remember about the characters. So then, next spread. And again, this is all stuff I do before I ever sit down to run my very first campaign with this group. The next spread is NPCs. This is really important. This spread you'll be coming back to quite a bit, and it's a simple setup. I just have the name of the NPC and notes. So not every NPC is going to be super important. And I don't always write every single NPC that the characters come across on here, but I will write NPCs that are important or who I know are going to be repeat NPCs, or just one who is a real standout who the characters might come back to talk to at some point. So I don't have a really strict format for this one. I'll usually give a little bit of information, like we'll say, Mary, the human barkeep, red hair, very talkative. So just some things so I can remember that NPC's critical points. Finally, the other important spread, this is information that I reference all the time and that I constantly update during a campaign, and that is special treasure. I don't know if you can see that, if it'll focus, but I'll also put up some images of this. So the special treasure thing, this was something I didn't realize I needed until a few iterations of taking notes like this. So when you give characters a magic item, or you make up a magic item like a special potion or a brooch that has a little magical effect that you just make up off the top of your head, I always write that down here, because you can tell characters, or rather players, what you're giving them. You can explain it in detail. You can write it on an index card and hand it to them, and they're still going to lose it. They're still not going to remember they have it. Nobody's going to know what it does. No one's going to remember what it's called. So anytime I create special treasure, whether it's a magic item or like a boon or even a promise that somebody made to them, I'm going to note it on here so that I remember what it does and I remember that I gave it out. And it's been invaluable to have that information. So that's our last spread of core information. And now I'm going to set it up and show you how I actually take session notes and what I'll do to fill out the rest of this notebook as time goes on. So when I create a session, again, I'm always working in spreads, and I set it up like this. So I'll say session number, so session 1, and then I'm going to write where the characters are, or what broadly they're going to be doing, and then I'll write the date. Then I'm going to write the plan here. I don't actually write the plan, but I write just a quick bullet note of what I believe we're going to be doing that session. I'll do this before we even begin play. And I'll say, like, today they're exploring the keep on the Borderlands. It doesn't always happen that that's what occurs during the session, but I like to just orient myself a little bit at the beginning of the session and have this so I can say to the players, when everybody sits down at the table, hey, today you guys are going to be exploring the keep on the Borderlands, like we talked about last time. Or, you might say something like, hey, you guys just got back to town, so we're going to play out what happens in town today. So I will always then write attendance right there as the following item. I'm going to write down the names of the players who play and show up. I run open tables, like, people come and go from it, and I'm not always having a consistent group of people, and sometimes people will say, hey, was I there that time? Or, did I come last week or the week before? And so it's good to know who was there so that you can make sure that treasure has been given out appropriately, and that people are, perhaps not forgetting that something happened that they need to know. And then I'll just put a dot line to kind of delineate that now this is where I'm going to take notes. And this spread here, now I have to keep my notes limited to this spread, but I'll tell you something, running 3-4 hour sessions, I've never needed more than 2 pages. And I want to just show you an example of what one of my real pages looks like for this. So this was session 5 of, I was running an adventure I wrote called The Hideous Halls of Mugdalblub. And I wrote a note here, you know, we're going to continue the Hideous Halls. I wrote who came. I also made myself a little note there. I think I was going to bring something for somebody that day. But then you will see that here it is mayhem. It's mayhem. There's no specific thing that I need to write down from this point forward. When something important happens during the game, I'll just note it. I'll say, hey, that guy got a critical. That was really cool. Or they went in and talked to the NPC that was in the cave. And, you know, I'll keep track of combat damage here. Like you can see right here, it's very simple. I had like gelatinous cube and I was just marking off the hit points right there. So this is a way for me to look back and kind of get a broad view of just everything important that happened during that session. And I'll just write as we go, you know, quick jotting notes. And the point here is not to write full crazy sentences. You want to just write bullet list notes of just the key things that are happening to you. You know, like went to see Mugdalblub, and it turned into, you know, this whole spread of notes here turned into just the quick bullet list that I made for session 5. Back on my very first page on the campaign overview for session 5, I explained the important details there. And here's one other, you know, secret tip. We always work in spreads, like I said, with this method. So there's some times where I don't use the second page. I fit all the notes here. And that's fine. I'm just gonna leave that second page blank. It's better to maintain your spreads than it is to, you know, use or force yourself to get out of that pattern to use one blank page. It's really rare that you won't use at least a little bit of the next page. And so what I did was I went from that session to the next one right along. And for me, that just makes it so much easier to just flip through and know that what I'm looking at on these 2 pages is just for one session. So that is the entire gist of it. That is how I keep my journals. I love to do it handwritten. I know, you know, sometimes you might want to take pictures of these pages or transfer some of it into like a digital note if you're worried about losing the data. You know, if I lost this notebook, that would be pretty sucky. But ultimately, this is my favorite way to do things, and it's kind of old school, but it's super flexible and really easy and fun. And then you kind of have like an artifact at the end of the campaign that you can actually look back through and say like, oh, hey, I remember the time that, you know, Krieg fell into the 90 deep foot pit and fell on a spike and somehow survived and then crawled back out and then fell in again. So it's kind of funny to have that thing at hand to look back through. So let me know how you do your journaling, if this helped you, if you're gonna give this a shot and see if you can run a campaign like this. And I hope that you get as much out of it as I do. So thanks for watching, happy gaming, and have a wonderful Halloween season. I'll catch you guys on the next video. Bye.